What's up, Sacred Men? Welcome back to the Sacred Men YouTube channel. I've got a couple guests on the show today, and I'm going to just hand it over to them right away and let them introduce themselves right away. So we'll start with you, Dr. Alex.
Alex Arguello. Am I supposed to say what I do here at the church, or what do I?
Yeah. No, what you do, period.
What I do, period. Okay. I am a chiropractor, own Great Roof Family Chiropractic, Great Roof Family Wellness, and co-owner of New City Fitness, and then doing some work here at the school, New City Classical Academy.
Mm-hmm. You're the acting headmaster?
Acting headmaster, board president of the school.
Okay. Mr. Jarek Bakken.
Look at that.
Way to go. Look at that. Only took 14 years.
It took one conversation from you moron.
He's still going to say it when he's behind the pulpit.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, now I'm going to say it just because it rhymes with fracking, and I think it's hilarious. I'm going to start Jarek fracking Bakken.
You did it wrong there. Jarek Bakken. So I also own New City Fitness with Alex. I do a lot of photography, video, marketing work as well. PE teacher at the school. Yeah.
All right.
That's about it.
Cool. Well, one of the segments on the podcast, or the show that I want to do, is kind of interview men, sacred men who are laying it out there for the kingdom, and you know what kind of stuff do you do? What are you into? And how is it impacting the work for the kingdom, et cetera, et cetera. And then, so first I want to start off with, from my perspective, I mean, you guys are into a lot of different things, but specifically for today, I'd like to talk about, the health and fitness side of things that you've got going. And then this new diatribe that I'm hearing about. I want to let the wider group of men at our church and that are watching the podcast, I want them to be aware of these things. So let's start with the health and fitness side. So I'm going to start with Alex. Alex, I guess the first question is, what got you into, health and fitness from more of a Christian perspective?
More of a Christian perspective. So I've been a chiropractor, graduated Palmer College in 2010, left the area for a little bit, do some training, came back, opened up my practice in 2011. I met you late 2011, I think, probably, at a CrossFit gym. I've told this story before in different settings of Sacred City, but I was going into that gym to build relationships, to market. You were one of the first people that I met. Little did I know you were doing something similar with me. But got you into the office early on in my practice. I would do this pretty extensive education process about chiropractic and importance of taking care of your health and nervous system and all that. And I took you and Amanda through that. And I can't remember exactly how you said it, but basically you said something like, "Hey, this was all good, but your theology's terrible." I basically thought every sort of issue known to man could be dealt with through chiropractic and taking care of your body. To
be specific, I didn't say this, but that's probably what I said. But your hamartiology was bad. Your doctrine of sin was bad, because I was like, cracking backs ain't gonna fix the fall, buddy.
Yeah. Well, once I started to learn more about this, I would always make the joke, because what I used to teach is a certain diet, and you could only eat certain fruits on that diet, and green apples were on the diet and other apples weren't. So I was like, it was just because if they would have just ate a green apple, Adam and Eve would have ate a green apple, then everything would have been fine. So hamartiology was pretty far off. So that just kind of made me, as I started to develop a theology, learn more about how the gospel influences all of life, I started to think about, okay, what I'm teaching, is it completely wrong? Is there things that are right about it? Can I continue teaching these things? And that's when I started to, recognize that, God's he's revealed himself to us in the scriptures, right? His written word, but then he's also revealed himself to us in nature. So we can take things from nature, what you'd call natural revelation, to see what is right, what is good.
Be careful with that.
I am absolutely
that's
careful
close
of
to
that.
Sacrilege.
You guys are about to get in on a hot button debate here.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hey,
I'm joking.
I'm for sure just trying to tell you where I was at before. So I was like, okay, that means I don't have to totally get rid of everything that I used to teach, but I do have to think some have to critically think about what I am teaching, and is it in alignment with the scriptures? Is it in alignment with God, the God that we serve? So yeah, that's kind of how I started to think through coming at health and fitness from a theological perspective. I had to do a lot of research on my own. And I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years ago, I wrote something on our social media platform a long time ago. It was called The City, on just like a theology of health or theology of the body. I wrote like a 3-part thing and got a lot of good feedback from it. So I just continued to study that. And then when I met Jarek, him also being a theology guy, we've been kind of thinking about this stuff for, I don't know, 8 years or so. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
So started the practice, and then eventually you guys start the gym. Mm-hmm. When was that?
2019 was when the gym opened up.
2019. Okay. So what's your path been like into health and fitness? This is a fun one too.
This is a fun one. So people who have met me in the past, in the past 10 years, they are surprised to find out that I grew up a fat kid. And was that way. And honestly, at my worst when I moved down here and started coming here. And so it was, even when, those stories overlap a little bit, because you guys met probably within the first year or so, of, the, public opening and stuff. And you guys used to work out in your garage at like noon. Mm-hmm. And so I played sports growing up, and even as a part of playing sports, I really enjoyed strength and conditioning and, being in the weight room and that stuff. So it certainly wasn't a lack of, enjoying that side of it.
But you were in a band.
Yeah. And that's fair. That's
too long to lift
his
weights.
hair was too long.
That's what got me out of playing sports is I had to, it was wrestling season my freshman year. And it was there was one night where I went from school to practice straight to a band practice afterwards, get home at 9 or 10 at night. And I'm like, crap, I can't do this. And yeah, I chose music over athletics. Yeah. Say it.
No, I'm wondering, what it would have been like if you didn't.
Well, here's the truth. I don't think I'd be here if I didn't.
That's because the music stuff got you here.
That's how I met Sam. That's how I met Alec. I mean, that's how I met Ben. That's how I met, all the guys who ended up moving down here, a couple of years later. So I think that, there's silver lining there.
Okay.
Providence lining there. Anyway, so I had seen you guys, working out at noon, and I didn't even really know what CrossFit was prior to seeing what you guys were doing, and had interest in it. But it was just at the time I was working a regular 9 to 5, and it's that doesn't work. But it was then when you opened up your garage at 7 a.m. is basically the change, the when worked for me. And so I was I can go there at 7 and still be cleaned up and get to work by 9. And that started it. As far as just, personally, started to take responsibility there, but really how that ties into thinking of, just a theological framework for health. It really started with seeing the type of exercise you're doing, seeing CrossFit and understanding the methodology as a pursuit in studying the human body and studying exercise as a whole and trying to do it in the most optimal way. And then getting introduced to, I think at the time you would kind of introduce us to just the paleo diet, and then thinking, there's also an optimal way that the human body should eat and fuel itself. And that's really what got me applying that type of thinking to, taking my understanding of natural revelation. God is revealing to us through his creation aspects of his character, aspects of when things work. I've been using the word optimally. When they work well, they're working in alignment with his design. I started just taking that idea and seeking it out everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And how much weight did you lose?
Originally, I mean, from my peak to my lowest, it was like probably 60 pounds.
60 pounds?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot on a 5'6" frame, though.
5'8".
All right. So yeah. And then we could talk about, I mean, I kind of want to stick on this, but obviously one of the things we want to highlight is also the cultural mandate that God calls us to get out there and to be fruitful and multiply and take dominion. Mm-hmm. And we talk a lot about leading in our homes, leading in the church, and then leading out in culture. And you guys have both done that. Alex with starting to practice, and then you both with the gym, and then with the school as well. And we're all three kind of involved in some aspect of the school as well. So our hands are in a lot of different pots that we're practicing what we preach. But I think I want to focus in more on like the health and fitness side before we get to the diatribe. And then like why is health and fitness, why should a Christian even care about health and fitness? Mm-hmm. And specifically to men, to the men.
Yeah. So what we did before we even had this idea of the whole diatribe thing that we'll get to is we decided that there were men that weren't doing things that we thought they should be doing in terms of health and fitness. And because we know men of our church specifically, if they have a theological reason to do it, then they're more than likely are going to do it. So we said, okay, let's actually come up with a theological argument for why you should take care of your body. So we came up with a 4-part class, and we started teaching it at the gym on Saturday mornings at 5 a.m. To just give what we believe is a theological argument for why someone would take care of their body. And we try to break it down into 4 reasons. The first one was worship. So if you see all of life as worship, then part of worshiping God is how you steward the things that he gives you, and he's given you the gift of your body. So you should be stewarding your body well as a form of worship to God. So, and why we wanted to start with that is because it's not totally disconnected, but it is disconnected from basically the job these other jobs that he's given you to do. Those, you can still say, okay, we need to worship God before whatever the result is that you get from doing things properly, right? So if I take care of my body, I'm going to be better apt to do other things, mm-hmm. right? But even before those things, if this is a form of worship, then we should still have to do it, even if it doesn't even if we don't get a result later on. Mm-hmm. So that was the first one. And then the next one was God's called men to lead, right? So that's he did that in the garden. Said man is the leader, is supposed to provide and protect. So we talked about man being a leader, and if you're going to actually be able to lead, you have to start with leading yourself. So that's back to taking care of your own body. And then if you're going to be able to lead your wife, you can't be lazy. You can't be slothful, right? You have to have control. All these type of things comes in the whole leadership thing. And then the next 2 are provide and protect. In order to provide, you have to be healthy. We made an argument for that. In order to protect, you have to be healthy. We made an argument for that. So that's kind of where we're at now with our argument for why one should be taking care of their body. It's the worship, leader, provide, protect, kind of the 4 components of what we would teach people.
Yeah, because Scripture says, obviously, to glorify God in our bodies. He tells us to present our bodies as living sacrifices. Mm-hmm. So those are both. The idea is that we're not just a soul. We're not just a spirit. That he gave us a body for a reason. And everything he gives us, he expects us to be good stewards of and to give back to him. Right. In some ways, in every way, more developed than he gave it to us. Like that's what maturity is. I mean, the body we got, right, when we came out of our mother's womb, that's not the body we're given back. We're given back a fully developed body, and even into old age, if the Lord tarries or allows us to live that long. So the first principle is it starts with worship. It starts with stewardship. And then the second one was leadership, right? And not just our wife, but I found my kid, if you're not leading well, if you're not leading yourself well physically when it comes to your body, your kids probably won't either. And you will have no authority to say you shouldn't eat that. Because the first question they're going to say, if you are the one eating it, is, Dad, you're eating that. Yeah. You're drinking that. You're doing that. Why can't I? Mm-hmm. And then, because I said so.
Not gonna work.
That don't work, man. That don't work. So, yeah, the principle of worship, leadership, and then what was the next two?
Well, just as a kind of subsets of leadership, is providing and protecting.
Yeah.
And really, they're kind of just two. It's one subset, right? It's worship is primary, but then we have responsibilities, right? The responsibilities that, especially the men in our church, they know they have. The point is, in order to fulfill those responsibilities, you need to be ruling over yourself well in this way.
Yeah.
I was going to read it. So one of the quotes that we use in the class that we're teaching is from R.C. Sproul. He says, fundamentally, stewardship is about exercising our God-given dominion over his creation, reflecting the image of our Creator God in his care, responsibility, maintenance, protection, and beautification of his creation. So all of those things you can think about as we should be doing the same thing for our body, right?
Yeah.
Which gets into a whole other topic of the last one was beautification of your body, and there being an actual objective standard to that, as opposed to where people are at now with subjectivity of what's good and beautiful.
So I presented these ideas to our health class at the school. I don't know if you caught wind of any of this in your household, but when I read that quote, going through these things. We had to sit down and discuss the objectivity of beauty for like 3 days after that, because to be fair, I think it was all the ladies in the room. They're like, whoa, what do you mean beautify your body? Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously this culture everywhere, my kids on the way to school today, we're talking about the body positivity movement, right? Mm-hmm. That you can be obesely overweight and wear a bikini and flaunt it on TV and social media and all this stuff, and everybody in the world is supposed to say that's beautiful,
right?
When we know it's not,
right?
It's not.
Yeah,
and that person would be far more beautiful if they lost this amount of pounds in their body, and they were better stewards of their body.
Yeah, and so that's the one that's like, I feel like it's so egregious that it's easy to look at and understand. But then even on the other side is vanity, right? So we're also not saying take this to that level, and there's another side of the horse. There's another ditch on the other side that we're saying, hey, the good, true, and truly beautiful thing is also not, even if you are that person, right? We all understand modesty is a good practice, right?
And I don't think that's the same. I don't think that's falling off the horse on the other side. I think that's a completely different thing.
I guess in terms of,
you can never be too beautiful.
Sure.
You can never be too beautiful, but you could put your identity into it, right?
Right.
Or you could do it that's a selfish motive, a vain motive.
Right. More so thinking about objections to caring about your health.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we live in a very casual society, and we think that because of the casualness in our society, we think that God doesn't care.
Sure.
Or maybe even because God looks at the heart.
Sure.
And not at the outward. So therefore God doesn't care about the outward.
Yeah.
And it's like, but God gave you an outward too. Mm-hmm. He cares about everything.
Right.
It's just when it comes to worship and when it comes to being in a right relationship with God, yes, the heart matters more, but the outside matters as well.
Yep.
Right. And then so you had provide, and obviously, to be able to provide for your wife and your kids, health matters.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in one sense, health, I know, the gospel and spiritual realities are ultimate, but your physical body is one of the most important things for you to be able to provide for your wife. If you're gone tomorrow, you can't provide.
Right. It is your tool. It is your primary tool, no matter what you do. Even if you're a guy who sits behind a computer screen all day, right? You are the engine behind that thing, the primary engine.
Well, and that's a good illustration because many of us, every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, we're getting our oil changed.
Sure.
We're not going to the gas station and just choosing some kind of random gas to put in it. That one with the green handle. I'm just going to put diesel in this thing. If it ain't a diesel truck, you're going to ruin it, right? Like you're not putting that E85 in your truck either.
Right.
We know all that when it comes to our vehicles, right? Maintenance is required. I'm keeping it in tip-top shape. I want it to last longer. But then when it comes to our physical bodies, many of us just act like God doesn't care about it and act like we don't care about it. And unfortunately, many of the repercussions don't happen for decades sometimes. But then when they start coming, they come fast. The receipts come fast. Right? And you get all kind, obviously diabetes and all kind. I mean, just you guys know more about all this stuff than I do, but all kind of negative consequences of burning the wheels off the vehicle and burning up the engine for decades.
Right, and you're hitting on, honestly, if there were one thing that is primarily the reason why people don't take this stuff more seriously, it is because of that gap. Right. We had a guy just last week. He's a regular dude at the gym. He's been around for a long time. He knows our stuff. He knows what we teach. And even still, he's saying like, man, sometimes the reason why I don't make a better decision is because I know that like I'm going to wake up tomorrow feeling about the same. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's that gap, even though we know without a doubt what the lifestyle that produces that outcome. We know what that looks like, right? We know it looks like eating these certain things, the standard American diet, living a sedentary lifestyle, right? All of these other factors, we can map those out and say, if you do these things, if this is what your life looks like, this is the inevitable outcome, right? And even so.
Yeah, like the chronic disease and all the stuff, all the problems in our healthcare system, we spend more money on each individual than any other country in the world.
Yep.
And we're way down. We're one of the least healthy countries in the world. Yeah. And we know that has to do with primarily diet and exercise and a few more things probably thrown in there.
Yeah. I mean, just specific to the providing, you have to be healthy now to be able to provide for your family, but Scripture talks about leaving an inheritance to your future generations. So if you work your butt off and don't take care of your health, now you're 60, 70 years old, where's all your money going to go?
Oh, yeah.
All your money's going to go to medical bills. It's going to go to you paying for a nursing home, whatever it is. And all that money that you try to store up to pass on to next generation is also gone.
Even before looking at inheritance, which I think is a really good and valid point, we have commands to older men and older women. And there's effectiveness to be had later in life. And if your days are spent managing disease, like think about how that's compromising your effectiveness.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. When you're sick, there's nothing else that you can think about and do.
Well, and it's
only thinking about your sickness.
It can become a negative inheritance to your children.
Oh yeah.
Before an appropriate time. So you could be, early 60s and now your kids are having to take you to different doctor's appointments all the time, and that's affecting them in the prime of their life where they've got little kids and now they're trying to manage and take care of a sick mother or sick father because they ran the wheels off their vehicle, right? They burned it down and didn't think about the future, and they become more of a tax or a liability on their children. Now, children are meant to, take care of their parents, but there's and some of that is inevitable, but I think it's just poor stewardship that brings those consequences, in one sense increases aging, right? Or increases the inevitable.
Right. Yeah, because like we are finite beings, there is a decline in health. But familiar with Peter Attia?
Yeah.
So he's got this great, just super simple visual illustration where he draws these lines of, the standard American life has this, gradual like decline over, a longer period of time where you're slowly declining in health as you get closer to death. And essentially what modern medicine, Western medicine has done is right at the end, when you're already living a pretty awful life, gives you a little dog leg, right? Gives you, hey, we'll sustain your low functioning life for a few more years right at the end, right? When the reality of what human health should look like is maintaining a pretty high level deep until the end, and then a very rapid decline towards the end, right? And just showing that gap then between this gradual fade and being able to have a longer health span and a rapid decline. That's actually what we're, in our language, designed to be able to live.
Yeah. So provide, and then the last one was protect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that one's kind of pretty obvious.
Right.
But and we try to get into, of course, just being physically capable to be able to protect yourself, be able to protect your wife and your family and others around you. But then also if you're just mentally, if you're not healthy there and you're depressed all the time, you're stressed out all the time, all that type of stuff, then that's also going to keep you from being able to actually be able to protect.
Yeah. Where do you factor in just like feeling better? Just like the overall, like, you don't have, like, the way it has, your food and your movement patterns have a way of mentally making you, feel better, fights off depression, fights off, the hormones inside you. It improves all these things, and you just feel better about life.
Right. So it's like you can say protect, right? That doesn't mean, hey, you're going to end up in a friggin' bare knuckle fight with somebody protecting your wife walking down the street.
Yeah.
But
most people are going to push back and go, well, I have a Smith & Wesson for that.
Okay. But again, that's one of those things like, hey, I can provide by doing work in front of my computer. It doesn't matter, who I am physically. Right. But you are, that's a huge liability, right? If your only way of protection is using a firearm, right? That's a huge risk if you don't have that, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that lady that was trying to protect Trump also had a gun. Right?
That's true.
That's true.
That's true. No,
a little bit more to it. Than
well,
just being able
there's
to-
that's and that, if you know anything, that a firearm is the last resort.
Right.
You don't want to have to do that.
Right.
That's going to bring a whole lot of, one, it's a final solution. You're probably taking someone's life, and two,
right. But if it's your
all kind of legal consequences in there, and I know it. Like I know, that's, I do jujitsu. I've wrestled. I've fought in a cage. I've done all this kind of stuff. So I'm never going to pull my gun unless I have to. I will wrestle and subdue a guy way, before I'm going to have to pull a firearm, and to have the confidence. And it's not just, it's the confidence to step into a really difficult situation that you can handle yourself.
Sure.
You pull a firearm, all debate is over.
Yeah.
Like there's no, but if you have to step into some really loud ruckus thing at a football game or something like that. If you have confidence that you could go a round or two,
right,
you're going to have more courage to stand in that and stand up for the weak or whoever it is.
Right. And you just mentioned it, but the confidence and courage piece is maybe even the most important piece of that, right? Because when you know that you are physically capable, you're going to be able to stay calm in that situation and hopefully de-escalate it, right? Hopefully be able to, do what's necessary with a level head versus freaking out and reaching for your gun.
Yeah. Well, I think people underestimate how physical fitness and health is really connected to courage and confidence.
Oh yeah.
My son, he's 18 and he's like 5'9", like me, but he's got some uncles that are taller. So he's just holding out for this growth spurt, And he asked me, he's like, Dad, he's like, don't you wish you were taller? And I was like, honestly, son, I haven't thought of it since like 7th grade. And he's like, what are you talking about? Why don't you want to be taller? I'm like, well, one, like now, like I legitimately choke out dudes who are 300 pounds
right.
and 6'2" every, twice a week. I'm like, your height has no correlation to how tough, strong,
Right.
Unless we're playing basketball, right? If we're playing basketball, then I might think about it, but I don't ever play basketball. So, but it's just, you have a confidence in what you're capable of, whether it's I got to run 5 miles, I got to take care of something, or it's I got to pick up something heavy, or it's I got to confront this drunk dude who's, saying stupid stuff to my wife or whatever, right? That you have confidence, and that is connected to, you can't have courage. Courage isn't faking it.
Right.
Courage is earned. Right. It's
that's what I was going to say.
You can't, it's not like, I'm going to, you see these internet guys, they look like they got courage and they get up there and get knocked out in one punch, or that's not courage. That's just stupidity. Courage comes from, I've been in this situation before. I know what my fitness levels are. I know my ability to hold myself, and I know what this guy is capable of because I've been in this situation before.
Yep.
And then you can truly be courageous.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It sounded like you were asking about something that maybe doesn't fit into these 4 categories. Is that what you were doing with the whole feeling good thing?
Yeah. I was thinking, where does that fit in there?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely another argument for taking care of your body. I mean, being able to fit that into a theological argument, I guess we haven't really thought about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, it's the psychosomatic, or whatever you want to call it. It's the body and soul connection, that there are guys that just wake up one day and just want to be done. Guys that are even fit, guys coming back from war, guys coming back from different things. And it's something in their soul. It's something in their emotions. It's something in their adrenal glands. I don't know. It's something in there that just is like, it causes midlife crisis and depression, and it makes everything else, all of those other things, more difficult. Right. And so I'm just saying, one of the things that I would tell men is, you're going to feel better. And I don't mean your body, because, when you start doing CrossFit, you're going to be sore all the time. Right? But you feel better in your mind. You feel your body's doing what it was supposed to do.
Right.
Obviously, did Jesus CrossFit? No, but he kind of did as a carpenter.
Well,
as walking everywhere. And
right. That's a huge component of this. Is we live, our modern era is, a lot of people don't realize, very unique compared to the history of the world, right? When we look at, especially the men of the Bible. Are you guys watching House of David, by the way? You look at those dudes, right? Like they're depicting these guys, just like they did in 300, as these jacked, bad dudes ready to fight, because that's what they had to be in that society. And honestly, until a handful of modern inventions in the past, 100, 200 years, like that's what life looked like, right? And most work was extremely physical and
in the elements.
Right. And so
you're not going to the hardware store to get your wood.
Yeah.
You got to go chop the tree down. You got to mill it yourself. You got to bring it back. You got to dig. I mean, it's incredibly physical.
Right. And go down the list with everything else.
Fighting animals off.
Right.
David killing lions and bears and stuff.
So great. And so it really is a modern problem that we have to now become kind of new experts in things like exercise, right? Exercise wasn't necessary for however long. Like, right, everything we think about as sport, tons of sport has its origins in combat, right? In what you call martial arts, right? Things that are derived from training for war, right? And for just the average person to need to do something like that now for your health, like it is very new and modern. And so it's not surprising that we don't have great theological grounding for this stuff, because it really wasn't super necessary before, because being physically fit was a necessity of life.
Yeah, which is how we develop good doctrine.
Right.
You don't need to develop good doctrine until somebody starts teaching heresy.
Sure.
And then it's like all the controversies around Arius and different people, it allowed us to clarify what we believe about Jesus, right? Because of false doctrine. Well, we've never needed that, but now all of a sudden, even if you watch World War II movies, all of the teenagers that are joining, that they're like 90 pounds, 115 pounds, they're all skinny. You know, in the 40s, they're all skinny. And now it's the exact opposite problem. The majority of them joining the military can't do a couple pull-ups.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. And it's a modern problem. We are becoming Wall-E.
Oh, yeah.
If you've ever seen that movie, Wall-E, the guys, they just ride around in chairs and drink out of Slurpee cups.
What's the other one? Idiocracy?
I've never seen that one. But they're just soft and a machine does everything for them. And we're not made to live that way.
No.
We're not made to live that way.
No.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking back with the whole classical education thing. The Greeks, from kids like 7 to 14 or something, part of their education was wrestling. So they had to learn how to wrestle. Then when they got to 14, they started adding in striking, boxing. Then they also started adding, not necessarily weightlifting, but like running, long jumping, all the, like what we know of as Olympic sports. So that was all geared towards, they were preparing them to be soldiers to be able to go out into war. So there was utility to it, but also part of the education is they knew that this physical part is also what allowed them to be able to have self-control, train them to have self-control, and then specifically control over your bodies. So if you think about all the stuff that we have now, laziness, gluttony, all the things that people struggle with now, if we would have that education and we were trained in that way, from our youth all the way up, then we would be able to be better at fighting a lot of these things, because yes, part of it absolutely is spiritual, but it's just how the human body was made. If we're not training ourselves to have control over these things, then we're not going to have control, and you're going to have negative consequences from it.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to all those things. There's a connection between your head and your body that in wrestling specifically, when you first start, you're doing it and you're like, I can't go any harder than this. Your fear spikes, your adrenaline dumps, and it just saps everything out of you. People don't realize how a 6-minute wrestling match is one of the most difficult things on planet Earth. It's terrible and great at the same time. But there's this brain piece with your body, and everybody says it, like your body or your brain quits before your body quits. Yep. Right? Your brain says, I can't go any harder, and then you give up. And when you're training it like that, you learn to push those limits. You hold out a little bit longer, and the wheels didn't fall off. Well, right. I actually could go a little bit harder. Right. My son's been wrestling 12 years, and even this year he was like, I thought I was exhausted. And then his coach yelled at him, and he was down by 2 points, and there was like 40 seconds left. And they went out of bounds, and his coach, do you want it? And he's like, and Javin didn't say anything, and he's like, say yes or no. Jeff's like, yeah. And he came back in there, took the guy down, and pinned him in 30. And I was like, nice. I'd never seen him do it. Yeah. Like I'd never seen it. When he was done, I was like, he's done. I was like, dang it. And it was like he found a new gear. Yeah. He surprised himself. Like I didn't know I could do that. Yeah. And it's in our head, and that's physical. But then you learn to apply that to business. Right. Anytime I can't do that. You learn that's not necessarily a true statement that my brain is telling me right now. I could probably do that.
Yeah, that's taking dominion, right? I was watching Cross Politics the other day. They were talking to this guy named Rod. I forget his last name. Anyway, he was talking about all the stuff Elon's doing. And basically, Elon's doing everything that everybody else says there's no possible way that can be done. Mm-hmm. And Elon's just taking, okay, you don't think it'll be done, then I'm just going to go do it. So human beings always have this other gear of taking something that everybody thinks is impossible and then figuring it out, taking dominion. You can train like that, right? You can train your body to experience things that you thought you could never do, and then just keep at it, and you continually improve. That's a huge part of it. Just a benefit from not working out anyway, but working out, of course, a specific way that that we try to recommend to people.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into that quickly. And then very quickly, I know you guys have classes on this. You guys teach at the gym on this. But first off, a quick, simple explanation, like what should we eat?
Real food.
That's it, right?
You should eat real food most of the time.
Real food most of the time. And that means stuff that doesn't come in a box, that's probably on the outside of the grocery store, that God gave us.
Right. And honestly, that's one of the lines that I use with my health class over and over and over again is if we eat food the way that God presented it to us, right, we're going to be in a pretty good spot.
Right.
Yep.
Light roast coffee. That's a great point. So, and they'll get it. You guys can listen to their podcast and you guys could join the gym and get a whole lot more of that. But bottom line, that's it. It's not processed food. It's not a bunch of sugar. It's not a bunch of sugary drinks. Just get that stuff out. And there's a big, I ate horribly for a long time until really meeting Dr. Alex, and I'll still, splurge occasionally, but it's really weird how when you start doing this and you start eating real food, how your whole taste buds and everything completely change.
Oh, sure.
I used to be the guy that was making fun of, flavored water and
right, I knew you were going to say that.
And all this kind of stuff. And now I'm like, that's all I drink, you know? And I'm like, I drink a Zevia. I'm like, I can only have one Zevia.
It's super sweet.
Yeah. I'm like, gosh, this is so sweet, but it's like a treat,
Right.
And your taste buds change, your body comp changes, and you're going to feel better in your overall health and fitness.
Yeah. When you had us do the, first month paleo weight loss challenge thing, the only thing I did during that was I changed the what of what I'm eating, right? Basically I said, if it is a whole food, right? If it's, single ingredient, I'm going to eat it. Okay. And I tried to pay attention to how much, but for the most part, I'm not sure if it was in that first month or the first year, but I know that there was a time where I wasn't concerned with any type of quantity or food timing or anything like that. The only thing I was doing was if it fell under these guidelines of real food, whatever. That was all I was doing. And at the time I kind of, had a little theory that seeing the progress that I was making doing that, I just thought to myself, I don't think you can get to certain levels of obesity without all this other stuff, without all these other processed foods, without...
Unless you're a king who just sits on his throne all day and they just bring him 8 meals a day or something.
Sure.
I don't think so either.
Right. I think we again, a modern thing. I don't think we can get to the levels of obesity and disease without the modern food system.
Yeah. All right. So that's the simple thing when it comes to what we eat. If we're going to take dominion of our body, start there. Very simple. The next piece I want to is just working out, right? Getting after it in the gym. And obviously I've trained my whole life basically since probably, I was in sports, but I started lifting when I was in junior high and have pretty much lifted ever since then. Taken some time off, but done a lot of different strength training, all this kind of stuff. I did MMA training. I'm big into biking, mountain biking, stuff like that. Done a lot of sports. And I think when all the training that I've done, there's still nothing can really compare with functional fitness. And I'm just going to use that. Yeah. We call it CrossFit, but I'm not really into CrossFit. I'm into functional fitness, but I don't really care about competition. I don't really care about my max scores and all this kind of stuff, but I'm into functional fitness. And I did CrossFit for about 10 years, 12 years, something like that. And then I couldn't do CrossFit and jiu-jitsu, and I wanted something different. And because once you do CrossFit for about 10 years, you start to level off, right?
Progress happens slower.
Yeah, progress starts happening slower. And once you start aging, that baby starts to come down. but I wanted something that was measurable with results based. So I wanted to do jiu-jitsu and have belts and do the whole thing. And now I'm just probably 6 months away from getting a black belt or so. So I've started back into CrossFit. And I noticed, obviously, even with wrestling and jiu-jitsu, my body composition changed. I didn't like how it changed, but I couldn't do them both because you get so stinking sore, and I'm not a flexible person. So it caused more injuries in jiu-jitsu. But getting back into CrossFit, I'm just reminded of just how functional it is and how you're not going to be the strongest guy in the world. You're not going to be the fastest guy in the world. You're not going to be the best gymnast in the world, best rower, but you're going to be competent at all of these things. Right. And you can do it an hour a few times a week. I just don't think there's anything going to the gym, going to the Y, you walk around for an hour and a half and you maybe lift for 15, 20 minutes, right? It's just not efficient. And so guys that are busy and yet they want to take dominion of their body, I don't think there's any, because we want to be well-rounded. You don't want to be the strongest guy in the world and then you can't run a mile. Oh, yeah. You can't chase your kid around the block. You can't ride a bike with your kid. You can't do all this stuff. You want to be well-rounded. Yep. Right? And so I would say, I would recommend it. For most guys, I would recommend it. Not to get into the competitive side, not to kill yourself, but to get in there, get uncomfortable, do the hard things, learn new skills. I think that does something to your brain as well. Oh, for sure. Learning a skill and then eventually mastering it.
Neurological adaptation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just even the desire, seeing that you can't do it and then working hard to be able to do it and then accomplishing it is also something that's significant.
Yeah. And so if a guy wants to come check out your gym and give it a try, what's the best way to do that?
Either just show up and you'll be fine, or newcity.fitness. There's a little schedule on there. You can get on my schedule. We can talk if you want to. If you don't want to just show up. Yeah.
We got a bunch of dudes obviously a bunch of people at the church are going. You guys just put on a competition. So that was pretty fun. It was like
very fun.
35. Oh gosh. Very fun for Jarek because he won it. 35 dudes?
36 on the roster, and then there are a handful that weren't on the roster. So.
Yeah, my son was in wrestling when that started, but then jumped in at the end.
40 probably.
Yeah, so at least 40.
So, real quick story, though, because the guys that are listening to this might be part of the group that we're in, and everybody thinks Jarek's this amazing CrossFitter. But when me and you started CrossFitting with Jarek, we had him do a competition with us, and I might still have the picture. All we had to do was 10 handstand push-ups. And Jarek sat there on his head, and me and you just sat there watching our placement go down by the second because he couldn't even do a friggin' handstand push-up.
That's true. That is true.
You want to tell the full story now?
So, what did he do, though? He stuck with it. He continues to train, and then, now he's the fittest guy in the gym. So, those guys that come in and they can't do the stuff, don't give up, right?
Yeah.
Continue going.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Your body was made to do it. You just gotta feed some speed to that ride every once in a while. You got to learn. You got to get back in you got to get back in those positions, put yourself in those situations, and learn how your body's supposed to move and how to do it. Right. Yeah. So I think it was a cool event. Lots of guys are jumping in, and I think it's the most efficient way to get fit. I really do. So you guys have like 5 a.m. class, 6 a.m. class.
5, 6, 9, and 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And 4 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most efficient way of exercise. So even if you did it on your own, it would be great. But the other part of it is we do it in classes. Yeah. So you're coming, hopefully, where there's other men that are trying to do the same thing at the same time, that are also trying to be efficient with their fitness, trying to grow, improve, all those things. So there's accountability, there's camaraderie, there's community, all that stuff, comes with what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the community piece is big. It's a big encouragement to keep you going back. And then there's that little bit of a competition there. You want to beat the guy next to you at your fitness level. You'll figure it out. We're about the same. And so my goal is to beat that guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Right now I just go in and just try to beat Leo. It's Leo. I mean, it's been kind of easy for most of the time so far. So no. Yeah. So I think that's a good opportunity. Now, what are you guys trying to do with this new thing you're starting called Diatribe.
Yeah. So you've said a few things. So there's been multiple jumping off points. So the first one I'm going to mention is, so everything that we've been talking about as far as the inevitable reality of the standard American lifestyle, all of that is true. And if we actually look at it, we're going to come to these conclusions that, hey, you need to do something to avoid this inevitable outcome. And very, very few people are motivated by that, right? And so that's something that, both of us have had personal experiences that have kind of shoved us into this stuff. So because of that, when we started, we started a podcast a handful of years ago. We started the gym. A lot of the time, our message was centered around this reality, around, hey, the standard American way of living is going to get you these things, but there is a way out. There is a way to live differently and not have these outcomes. And what we found is that message doesn't resonate with people, right? Even though it's true, even though if we are people committed to truth, it just doesn't get people to move, right?
Every doctor knows this.
Just really quick, if it did, it resonated with women,
right?
Who, if they weren't being led by their husband, it was very difficult for them to do what we were trying to get them to do.
Yeah. And I was going to say, every doctor knows this. Guy comes in, had his first heart attack, tells him, "Oh, you got to stop eating this, got to stop doing this." And they know they're going to give it to him. That guy's going to go back out. He's not going to change a dang thing.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Having a heart attack won't even change him. Right.
Right. Right. And so, we kind of, over the past year or so, making this kind of theological argument for this stuff, that was kind of a good starting point. But then just being honest about, hey, what is it that really does draw us into this stuff? And, you said, hey, you don't have to get into the competition stuff, but at the same time, you're saying, hey, find somebody who you can kind of compete with. We love the competition of it, right? We love you can call it the sport of it. But that really does kind of hit something unique in us that really is a big driver of kind of what keeps us motivated to keep seeking after progression and growth and all of this stuff. And realizing that, hey, it's not just, hey, we want to be able to help anybody who wants help with their health and fitness. No, we really want to be able to help men and Christian men. And so narrowing in on that is kind of what has led us to starting this we're calling a brotherhood, to be able to try to reach these guys specifically and in ways that isn't necessarily leading from the front and saying, hey, seed oils are from Satan and all of this stuff. It's like, hey, the first thing we did was we said, hey, we're doing this competition. Why don't you jump in, right? And we got a ton of dudes interested in that. And now from there, we've been able to start to drip in, our breadth of teaching. But now what we're trying to do is take these guys who we've captured their attention. They've had a taste of some of this stuff. Some of them have fallen in love with it. We're now trying to turn that into, hey, let's commit to this bigger than just this little competition that we did, right?
So what is it? What is Diatribe?
It is a brotherhood of Christian men devoted to taking dominion over their bodies.
Okay.
Right. And so, for now, the functionality of it is we're just kind of essentially making a product out of this Saturday stuff that we've been doing. So we ran this competition on Saturday mornings. We're going to keep doing that. We're going to do something like that little 3-week team competition series. We're going to do that twice a year. So the CrossFit Games Open, that's the one that we just did. We're going to kind of make our own in the same format 6 months from now.
Do it when it's warm out.
Yeah.
So we don't have to use machines.
Yeah. In September, we'll be outside. We'll do all the stuff that we weren't able to do in the spring, do stuff outside of the gym, do things that you're not going to see in an online, setting, that kind of stuff. We're going to create, so that's 2 months out of the year. So the other 10 months, I'm going to create unique and specific benchmarks, right, for these guys to test, and on an individual level, be able to, year over year, compare those things, and then even just against one another, look at how you stack up and stuff. But then the other piece of it is, continuing our education. So we work out at 6 on Saturday mornings, but at 5 o'clock, honestly, a smaller group shows up, and we've been working through what we call our principles of health, right? Teaching these guys, hey, it started with those elements of worship, leading, protect, provide, right? Providing that theological framework for this stuff. But now the reason why we did that was to say, hey, all this other stuff that we always teach, this matters, right? So now we've kind of turned the corner. We're almost all the way through teaching through our nutritional principles. We'll talk a lot deeper about, hey, why is CrossFit such an effective thing, right? How do we look at this body that God's designed? What is it capable of doing? What should we be able to do? Working through, we have...
So is it just basically, it's Christian, it's the gym stuff, but it's health and fitness. It's a health and fitness brotherhood for Christian men.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. To try to simplify it, there's that problem of men not taking dominion over their bodies. And if they can't do that, then they're not going to be able to go and take dominion over the culture, which, to bring Isker stuff into it, we live in a trash world that's working against men being masculine. We talk about here at Sacred City wanting Sacred City Church to be the most masculine church in the Quad Cities. We want to be a part of that by helping men with their health and fitness, because we know that that's a significant part of them actually being able to be the man that God's called them to be. If we just said, hey, here's how you do it, and then go do it on your own, more than likely not going to happen. But if we can bring them together in a group and say, hey, here's a brotherhood, all trying to work towards the same thing, can keep each other accountable, can have camaraderie, can compete against one another, can call each other to better things, challenge one another in certain ways. That's what we're trying to create, cultivate.
Well, I think it's great. I think guys who are listening who haven't even been part of this competition stuff, I think you should come check it out. And have you got anything online yet with it or no?
Not for that. So basically for our members, it's like this is just a part of your membership, right?
Yeah.
But it is the first time that we've ever offered anything different than be a full-time, unlimited class member, and it basically at a lower price point. Hey, come do this stuff with us on Saturdays. Yeah, it's not, you can't get to it publicly, but I have a private link.
So here's I've had this idea, and maybe this is maybe this would be something that we could partner together in. Obviously, being able to lead yourself, that's a key piece of being a sacred man. That's the same thing, and that means dominion over your body, emotions, desires, all this kind of stuff. And so one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to have a kind of like a rite of passage, like a rite of passage for men. And I thought about it being maybe like a yearly thing, and something where it's challenging. I want it like very accessible, way more accessible than CrossFit. I want it to be like no one's technique.
Sure.
Or
low skill.
Or very low skill. And so I'm thinking it's just going to be a ruck.
Yeah.
Like you put a backpack on, I don't know. And maybe the thing is, this year I'm going to put 10-pound backpack on. I'm going to do it. And next year I'm going to do 20. Next year I'm going to do, you know what I mean? But it's going to be something that you have to train for.
Sure.
If you just try to show up and do it, you'll fail. It might be, and I'm thinking it might be like something like an 8-hour ruck.
Sure.
Just a grind. The whole purpose is just to keep moving. That's it. Just keep moving. And you're going to have to deal with, doubt. You're going to have to deal with all the negative thoughts of I'm wasting my day. I could be doing so other. I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to take this bag off, and it's just going to be something low skill. Keep moving, and then at the end of it, whatever you pass the gauntlet or whatever it is. You did this really hard thing, and hopefully a brotherhood comes out of that as well. And then next year it's coming again, and maybe you do a little more, something like that. So, is that something that you guys?
We're in.
You're in? interested in doing?
Yes.
And us doing it or coming up with what the exact thing is?
Oh, no, I want you in it, baby. I want you in it, brother.
Sure.
Both. No, like, yeah, both. Like,
Yeah.
I because it would have to be an event. So we would have to
Right.
have aid stations and,
Sure.
things like run it like a 8-hour race.
Sure.
It's not a race. It's not like who finishes first. The whole goal is just to finish.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole goal. Just to finish, low and slow, and just keep grinding.
Yep.
I mean, to me, that's life, right? Just keep grinding.
Yep. That's good.
But men, we don't have this kind of like rite of passage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's going to be something we can get our teenagers involved, and we could do it. We could do it ourselves as well.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I like it.
Yep.
Cool. All right. I think we're just about an hour. You guys got anything else you want?
I mean, maybe just speak to the whole why we named it Die Tribe.
Oh yeah.
We want men who are going to die to themselves, right? Die to themselves, and God's given us this body to use while we're here. So the whole, Andy Wilson, Death by Living things plays into it. So, yeah, I think that's a significant part of it that we don't want to miss.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's probably one of the first times I walked into your garage and you had that quote written up there, and I don't even know who this dude is at that point in my life. Mm-hmm. But basically the summary of the quote is: you have hands, blister them while you can. You have bones, make them strain, because they can do nothing in the grave.
They can carry nothing in the grave.
Right.
Yep.
And the whole idea of that book and this is to be spent. Right. You have a limited life expectancy, and you can spend that time scowling or smiling. Right. You can spend that time rejoicing and giving of yourself and die a death. So the title of the book, Death by Living. That's what they write on your death certificate.
Yeah.
Cause of death, life.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just say, do you want to do that weak? Do you want to do that fat? Do you want to do that slow? Like, you're a man. You're made in the image of God.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of the weakness.
Yep.
Get rid of the extra fat, man. Mm. Like, you'll feel better if you do. You'll be more confident if you do. You will be able to accomplish more if you do. You'll be a greater threat to the kingdom of darkness. Right? If you're weak, you walk into the room, the devil ain't, he ain't worried about you.
Right.
Right? But if you're a strong man, this is why, is it 1 Corinthians 16? Yes, 16. Act like men.
Oh, yeah.
Be strong. Act like men. Be strong. We're commanded to do these things. And our he's not just talking spiritual. Our physical bodies matter. Right? So, okay, I think we've been going about an hour, and you guys got an introduction to Dr. Alex and Jarek and New City Fitness and the new Die Tribe. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And if you can find them on social media and everywhere else. And if you got any questions, you can put them in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them, or I'll get them to these guys to answer. So guys, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, it's great.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Talk to you later, guys.